So yesterday I was standing in the back and I had to pee really bad. And so I was trying to make it out of the first session as safe as I could. And so right when the last speaker stopped speaking, I bolted out the door and I saw John Mackey coming this way. And I said, hey man, that was a really smart move. You beat the crowd. And with a normal voice and a perfect cadence, he says, that was a story of my life. Well played. Well played. So I have a quick poll for you. Please look at this picture. There you go. Please look at this for 3 seconds. And by a show of hands, please tell me who can only see the dollar sign. Everyone see the heart? Awesome. So what I've found is that a lot of people only see one side of this. Apparently you guys are better than average. So what I love about conscious capitalism is that it combines both the parts of the things that I love, and a lot of times people see it through a charity filter or through a a profit, thanks buddy, a profit-driven business filter. And I have felt compelled for the majority of my life to reject either or questions. And this started at a very early age. So I call this picture Superman Cowboy. And what I found is that, yeah, this is me at 3, and God knows what I was doing to make the crotch roll over towards my right leg. My mom calls this stage the run, jump, and play stage because she couldn't get a hold of me. And I guess she had to tell me this shirt was lost because I'd wear it for weeks in a row. But just imagine this kid if you told him that he could only wear one of the two. And so a lot of the biggest pains in my life have come from times when I've bought into the construct that I had to choose one path. And so that biggest time for me was when I had to choose in high school whether to become an engineer or whether to become an artist, right? And what happened is that I bought into the social construct that you go through this progression where you go to school, you get a good job. I got a job as an engineer for Toyota, which I thought was awesome because I got to play with these amazingly large tools, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. I got a job with an aerospace company where I got to play on the largest scale with aircraft components that have the smallest tolerances in the world. So what I found was I got to my lowest point at the age of 27 because I did everything that I thought I should, but I was asking the wrong question. And the question was one-dimensional, and it was purely based on logic. So what I did is I had a hard reset, and the way I reacted to it, I had a great time doing it. So what I decided to do is I quit my job. I was living a block away from the water in Huntington Beach, and I went on a trip around the world for a year to try to figure out what my passion profession was. What I ended up doing, in addition to having an amazing time, I visited 21 countries and 39 cities, trying to figure out what my equation was and what the right question was, because I knew I had the right question wrong. The question that I came up with when I came back was that I wanted to combine my passions for engineering, the animated responses of art, and a community focus. There's something about travelers that's really special. Travelers have this sense of interconnectedness where they know how singular and plural things and singular and plural people all fit together. And I wanted to create this into a business that then became Refresh Glass. What really excited me later is I found this concept of the beautiful, the true, and the good. And so what that is all the way back in the days of Plato, 500 years BC, they came up with this concept that there's 3 essences to your being: the beautiful, the true, and the good. What they basically represent is beautiful is aesthetics, it's the arts, right? How does it make you feel? So that's right brain. The true is logic, right? So that's does it work? And the true is basically altruism or how it affects others. And the reason why I thought this was so important is because I wanted to come here today and tackle that big question that we've all been wondering about, which is what's this new level of thinking that's going to get us to the next level? And what I found is really exciting. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this quote that's from the Yellow Book, John Mackey and Raj. And here it says, "There is no intrinsic reason why business should be different from any other human endeavor. The same enduring ideals that animate art, science, education, and many nonprofit organizations can and should also animate business. These were articulated by Plato, the transcendent ideals of the good, the true, the beautiful, and humankind has been seeking to create, discover, and express these transcendent ideals for thousands of years. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to figure out how I independently, not knowing this even existed, came up with the same basic three and how they have repeated over and over and over in time, and I wanted to map it out on a larger scale. And I'm really excited about what I came up with. And of course, because I have an engineering problem, I created an equation out of it. Recovering engineer. So if we're operating off the power of the and we want not profit or love in terms of the for-profit or charity, dichotomies, how can we create profit and love by creating higher degrees of feeling, function, and altruism for our stakeholders and our product and service offerings? So this was my question. And when I started mapping it out, it got even better. And here's where I started. So if we take the beautiful, the true, and the good, and we separate into street-level terminology because it can seem very ethereal and conceptual. You come up with beautiful being the question of how does it make me feel? True being the question, how does it function? Does it work? And good is in terms of altruism. So I wanted to compare this to all the different stakeholders to see if it held true across the board, and it did. And so when I asked myself, how do employees want to feel? They want to feel engaged. They want to be trusted. They want to be, given consideration. How do they want to have their job function? They want to live a responsible lifestyle, and then they want to have a job that has purpose. And so the same thing held true with stakeholders. They want consideration when the executive team is making their decisions. They want to be informed, which is more on the reporting side. And then they wanted to have a sense of contribution to what they were doing is larger than themselves, which a lot of people now call impact funding. And so for the products, again, it happened again where I had already found the solution just in a roundabout way because I had paid a consultant hundreds of dollars to come in and help me with my branding, and we came up with our 3-word tagline of style, function, and purpose, and it slid right in. A couple weeks ago, I did a trial run of this presentation just to test out the content, to see how people responded to it, to see if there was any functional fixes that we can create in their businesses. And the first thing that happened on the product side is a friend of mine has a company called Truce, which makes organic cleaners that are perfectly kid and pet safe, in addition to being super effective and simple. So he came to my office extremely excited. He's saying, Ray, he's like, the 3 things that we created as well that had the right fit also fit into the model. And so the simple is it's not complicated. It doesn't cause me anxiety of trying to have to figure it out. The effective is the true, and the safe is the good. And so what we came up with as a model to help their business is they're this week going to be calling 100 of their customers and asking them on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to you that it's simple? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to you that it's effective? And how important is it to you that it's safe? Then they can use this to leverage across their marketing as a value proposition, understanding exactly what their customers care about in terms to get them more sales and more ravenous engagement. On the shareholder side, I also was called by a lawyer who is a litigator. He has an office of 30 or 40 lawyers. And so what he told me, he said, Ray, I love your concept. I've figured out the true and the good. I just don't get the beautiful. And so I asked him a little bit more about what he does, and he told me that it's very emotional for people to go through litigation when you have partnership disputes and when you have divorces that involve kids, money, and houses. And so I asked him, is there a way for you to make that process more human? And his eyes lit up, and he's like, Ray, yes, I could do that. And then on the flight here, while I was at home, I had indexed 40 or 50 of my books for my library and just started reading through the notes. And of course, I picked up Dan Pink's Drive. And if you think about, authenticity being created by leadership that helps their employees feel trusted and appreciated, there's a really good argument. And I'm going to be in the line for the book signing later, and I'm going to ask him, do you think that authenticity, mastery of skills, and purpose falls in here too. So there's all these different events that people have found independently of how they're compelled that seem to be component parts of this overall solution that I'm continuing to test. The next level that I went was to see if it actually fit into the constructs of our daily lives as well, and not just in business. And here I found that for home, in terms of filling function in others, in terms of people that we engage with, if they're your friends, if they're your paramour, you want them to be fun, interesting, humorous. You also want them to be smart and interesting, right? Smart, you know what I mean? Be able to engage in conversation, and you want them to be kind and values-based. Same thing for food, Panera Bread, delicious, nutritious, non-GMO. Vehicles, I mean, how many people in here have a Tesla at home? Couple. Man, striking out here, I thought there'd be a ton. But if you really look at it, I mean, Tesla's success is they're, in many ways, the first company that has been able to score high levels on design, performance, and the energy efficiency. So all in all, across the board, it just seems too hard to deny that there is a pattern here, because in order to create the building blocks of the new vocabulary that we need to figure out our new reality, we have to figure out how it all works in. So the part recently that's been the most powerful for me has been everywhere I go, in terms of everything I touch and see on the consumer side, I play a small game with myself in terms of high, medium, and low. I created in my head a color scale. So green is high, yellow is medium, red is low. So everything I touch or engage with or focus my attention on, I've been asking myself on these three categories, how many things I touch and see are a 3 out of 3? High. What I've found is that as advanced as we feel, the vast majority of the things that we touch and engage with are a 1 out of 3 or a 2 out of 3. So my question for all of you is, with all of this exponential growth that we're going to be experiencing, with all of the tech, and with how everything seems to be piling up into this new vocabulary, how long are you willing to tolerate 1 out of 3 and 2 out of 3 solutions? In the product world, in the service world, with the people you engage with, and where this becomes really powerful is, how much do you want to hang out with someone who's fun and smart and mean to people? You know, when you take it into context for all of these, do you want something that's, nutritious and non-GMO, but it's a dry salad, if you have an option to create all three? And so this is the part where we get to test it. There's too much here to deny. So my question for you in leaving is, how can we create value for all of our stakeholders? So the major ones, right, for internal stakeholders are employees, customers, vendors, and shareholders. So where this really creates power in terms of the context is the relatable synonym for each level. So if you were to meet with your employees and say, we're going to pick 2 criteria for each of the 3 ideals. So we're going to pick trustworthiness and accountability for how we make you feel, and you pick 2 for each one. You can create targets and actuals to where you gauge how they feel on that level. Then you can create gap plans to bridge the gaps, to try to raise the levels on all 3, and thereby affect the results of the outcomes. So how long are you willing to tolerate 1 or 2 out of 3 solutions? And this may be the building blocks to a new terminology that can elevate humanity. Thank you.